Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here's the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
And good evening. We are back from our 167-hour hiatus with another exciting adventure. I'm joined tonight by Mark O'Connell, and I probably ought to ask him for a job, having read his biography here. Mark has written several episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, and one of the Deep Space Nine episodes, Who Mourns for Morn, was named a Hugo winning named by Hugo award-winning science fiction writer. I have no reason why I can no longer speak. As one of the best of the Deep Space Nine episodes, or Star Trek episodes. He has feature film projects in development with Disney, DreamWorks Animation, Launchpad Productions, Barcelona Films. You see, I can say Barcelona, but I can't say easy stuff. Barcelona Films and Al Ruddy Productions. He currently writes a UFO blog, High Strangeness. I can't say American words. High Strangeness at www.highstrangenessufo.com, and has made his reality show debut in 2015 on Mysteries at the Monument on the Travel Channel. He's also writing The Close Encounters Man, which is an authorized biography of Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who coined the term Close Encounters of the First, Second, and Third Kind, for Day Street Books, an imprint of HarperCollins, and it will be out in May of 2017. So now you understand why I thought maybe I should ask him for a job with all this stuff going on here. Mark O'Connell, welcome to A Different Perspective.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
I don't hear any job offers.
Yeah. I felt I should point out that those film scripts in development, that's all past tense. Those scripts were in development. They are not now. I just wanted to be clear on that. The big thing I'm working on now is the book.
Way to weasel out of offering me a job, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, if I gave you an opening, then everybody would want one.
Now, that is true. Absolutely. And besides, I'm retired, so I just accept the government's money that they send to me for free now. Anyway,
perfect.
Anyway, the reason that you are here tonight is because we'd corresponded about this. You and Don Schmidt were going to debate the Roswell case on a different radio show, who I will not name, and it was supposed to be put up, I guess, online so people could review it as we do with this show every week. And that the last time we communicated, that hadn't happened. Is that still the case?
Yeah, and just to clarify, Don and I actually did have the debate. This was a live debate that took place last month, October, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. Don had challenged me to do a debate at this event on the Roswell slides and the Roswell saucer crash story. So we held the debate in October. And the debate was webcast live as it occurred by that other radio station we will not mention. That station actually sponsored the event, and I was told that the debate would then be posted on that radio station's website so that people could go listen to it anytime. The problem is it's never, as far as I can tell, it has never been posted, even after they assured me that it would be. It's never been posted, and now the people at the radio station are not returning my messages. So I don't have any idea why they wouldn't post the debate, but that seems to be the decision that they made. So I appreciate your inviting me here today to talk about it, because it was kind of an interesting event, and I think more people should know about it.
Well, I think we'll get into depth on that in just a few minutes, because we're going to have to take a break here in just a moment. But from what you communicated with me, and of course they were all biased, the people that you talked to, your family members, your niece, thought that you'd won the debate. And I'm sure that Don's compadres in the audience thought that he had won the debate as well. So we'll discuss what exactly the debate was about, and even the Roswell slides thing, which I thought was pretty much passé, given everything that's happened about that. And as I say, oftentimes you can get more information about what we discuss here on the radio at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. So we will be back in just a few moments to talk with Mark O'Connell about the Roswell debate. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
And we have returned with Mark O'Connell. We're going to talk about the Roswell debate he had with Don Schmidt quite a while ago, last month, October, and see if we can't learn a little bit about that. And the one thing that you said that intrigued me right off the bat was that part of the debate was about the Roswell slides, and I can't imagine what that debate would have been about. I mean, it seems to me that from everything I've seen, everything I've read, everything I posted on my blog, suggested the thing, I shouldn't say that, the poor unfortunate child in the photograph was a mummy, and it is what 900 years old or something like that. So there doesn't seem to be any debate about the slides left at all. What did you guys talk about?
Well, Kevin, the debate moderators, there are 2 people involved. There's T. Krulos, the gentleman who organizes the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference, who is an awesome guy. I want to just give him kudos for putting on this fantastic event. And then there was the debate moderator, who was an actual local college professor. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was very thorough, very meticulous. He organized the debate. He ran the debate at the event, made sure that, both Don and I had equal time to get our points across. It was all very, very well run. But T and the professor are the 2 people who put together the debate questions. Don and I had no input in that. And one of the debate questions specifically was, let me get this out here. One of the questions specifically, question number 4, what impact has the Roswell slides had on ufology? Has it damaged credibility in the UFO field? So that was question number 4. So we had actually already been talking for probably at least a half an hour, maybe more, before we got to this topic. But it was most definitely, they were asking specifically about the slides. So
But they weren't suggesting they weren't suggesting that there was anything left to discuss about the identity of the image.
No.
We're now to the
No,
point
not
where,
at all. Not at
we're
all.
now to the point where does it damage ufology? And
Yes,
I would
that was
imagine
exactly that. That was it.
I would imagine Don said not really, and you said, well, somewhat.
Yes, that would be a fair assessment. Actually, I started out my answer. I started out my answer to that question by quoting Dr. Hynek. In the research I did for my biography of Dr. Hynek, I came across an interview that he did for Omni magazine in 1985, and the interviewer asked Hynek specifically, "How do you feel about saucer crash stories?" And this is what Hynek said, quote, "To be honest, I don't like to talk about crashed saucers because I'm in a position to mobilize public belief. If I came out and held a press conference to say that a saucer has landed and the creatures were in deep freeze at right field, quite a few people would believe me. But it wouldn't necessarily be true, and it certainly wouldn't be science. I won't jeopardize my reputation for the sake of a story," unquote. So, I just said when the world's leading expert on UFOs won't jeopardize his reputation by repeating saucer crash stories, that tells you all you need to know about saucer crash stories. And I went on to say that I thought that the Roswell slide story really had a horrible effect on ufology because it created a terrible double standard. So the way I described this was, let's look at a scenario where some people come across an artifact that they believe proves that Earth has been visited in 1947 by aliens and flying saucers. Those people make a bold public announcement that they have physical evidence of aliens on Earth, but soon after that, they realize that this artifact was actually of earthly origin, nothing alien about it. So they're forced to retract their public announcement and admit to the world that they made a big mistake. Now, that scenario obviously describes the Army Air Force, right? In 1947, it's exactly what they did. They came across this supposed artifact that supposedly showed that Earth had been visited by aliens. Then they had to retract that statement and say, oops, our mistake, it's actually from Earth. But that also describes Don Schmidt's Roswell Dream Team and the way they handled the Roswell slides. They did the exact same thing the Air Force did. They made a bold public announcement that they had found this artifact that proved that aliens had visited Earth. They showed it off in public, and then almost immediately had to retract their announcement and say, oh, we messed up. This is actually something from Earth. So my question to Don was, okay, you take those two stories, you want us to give the Air Force absolutely no benefit of the doubt, but you want us to give you full benefit of the doubt. And I said, if the Air Force doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, why do you? And he got all flustered and he just started insisting, well, I never called them the Roswell slides. I never called them the Roswell slides. Show me one place where I called them the Roswell slides, which, that's completely beside the point.
And somewhat disingenuous. It was somewhat disingenuous simply because if you go back and you listen to what Tom Carey was saying from the very beginning, he was saying that the moment he saw the image, he thought immediately of descriptions of the Roswell bodies that he had been given by witnesses and thought this linked directly to them. I wanted to say one other thing. The Air Force actually never said they had an alien spacecraft. They said they had a flying saucer. And if you put it if you put it in the context of 1947, flying saucer meant a lot of things, one of which was alien spacecraft, but it also meant a lot of other things. So, the Air Force didn't really say we have a crash saucer with alien bodies. They said we have captured a flying saucer. And the story was very vague until we got to Ramey's office. But having now said that, to clarify that point, I think that you're also correct when you say that they made the announcement that they had this was an alien creature that had been recovered at some point, and they connected it directly to Roswell with a number of the witnesses they brought in. So they connected it to Roswell. So it's somewhat disingenuous to say, well, I never called them the Roswell slides, which he may never have said. I think that was a term coined by more of the debunkers. I began calling them the not Roswell slides simply for that reason. But the point, you've made a good point. So Don was kind of flustered by the comment from what you say.
Yeah, and he never really responded to my question. If the Air Force didn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, why does he? I think that's a fair question to ask. If he wants to say, "Oh, the Air Force lied about the whole thing, but we didn't. We just made a mistake," I think that's a grossly unfair double standard, and I think that's the kind of thing that damages ufology, because it basically tells the world we are not holding ourselves to a high standard. We will forgive ourselves for making really, really stupid mistakes. And it's not the first stupid mistake they've made. You've been involved in this story for a long time. How many smoking guns have there been that turned out to be complete fakes? The alien autopsy film, yes. the Frank Kaufman escapades, all of that stuff. So-called smoking guns that have just turned out to be absolutely untrue. So, how many times can you keep coming up with smoking guns? So again, this is my response to, yes, I believe it has damaged ufology.
And I would respond by saying, the alien autopsy was not something that came out of ufology, and almost universally it was panned from the very beginning. It was others who glommed onto it and thought this was the end all be all. But in dealing with the alien autopsy, I mean, there were problems with it from the very beginning, from the six-fingered aliens to the idea that it was somehow connected to MJ-12, not to mention the classifications that were supposedly on the film canisters. It bore no resemblance to anything ever used by the United States military at any time. And the ridiculous idea that the guy had absconded with 23 small canisters of film of top secret material, and nobody ever noticed it was missing when it was well known in top secret projects. They would count the frames to make sure every frame had been returned. So, I mean, with alien autopsy, it went out over the world and it didn't do us any favors. But for the most part, many of us in ufology realized it was a hoax. Frank Kaufman, I take full credit for, but I never referred to him as a smoking gun. It was just other information that we had from a guy who we'd been pointed to by Walter Hott, who we thought was a very credible source and was kind of engineering things in Roswell for all of us to respond to. So, given all of that, it's still, the thing that bothers me about the Roswell slides is that, unlike some of that where we really weren't involved, or we were involved but not calling it the smoking gun, with the Roswell slides, that's exactly how it was presented to the world.
Yeah. Well, and the Roswell slides event actually led directly to this debate that Don and I had last month, because shortly after the big reveal in Mexico City, it was announced by MUFON that Jaime Maussan would be one of the keynote speakers at their next UFO symposium. And I've been involved with MUFON for a couple of years. So I wrote a letter to Jan Harjan, I think that's the name, the CEO of MUFON. And I just said, I don't think it's right that one of these guys who was on stage in Mexico City promoting the Roswell slides should be a keynote speaker at our UFO symposium. And he wrote back and said, well, I understand. I appreciate what you're saying. But he said, we've had these speaking engagements booked up a long, long time, long before the Roswell slides thing came about. And he said, Jaime is only going to be talking about his collection of UFO images. Okay, well, I wrote back and I said, okay, but I said, in future, how about if anytime one of these Roswell slides guys is invited on stage, how about if you also invite someone else to share the stage with them, someone who can actually call their story into question and present alternative viewpoints. So having proposed that to Jan, when Don challenged me to do this Roswell debate, I thought, oh, well, that's exactly what I've been suggesting should be done. So that was why I accepted the challenge. That, okay, here's my chance to put my money where my mouth is.
And so you were unsuccessful in getting Jaime Maussan canceled. I would have thought if you're a legitimate research organization and you found something like this has gone on, even though he's been invited for a long time. I imagine there's other instances where speakers have been canceled simply because they have feet of lead. They have gone over the deep end, and their credibility has suffered badly. I don't understand why MUFON insisted on. Well, I guess he's a big draw though, and it would become monetary.
I think probably that's the heart of the matter right there, what you just said.
So we're in the debate. We've now discussed the Roswell slides. What other aspects of it were brought up? I mean, not the Roswell slides, but the Roswell case.
Well, I can just sort of walk through the discussion we had based on the questions that were asked. If we could do it that way if you'd like. The first question was, is it time for ufology to move on from the Roswell event? And I said that in my opinion, ufology already has moved on from the Roswell event. So that's not even the question we should be asking. But I said, here's what one UFO expert says. And then I quoted Don Schmidt from his public apology after the Roswell slides, where he said, quote, "I am afraid that after spending almost half of my life devoted to one specific investigation, I allowed the allure of final resolution to cloud my skeptical nature and to be replaced by a false vision of hope. I now realize that the image in the slides is a mummy, as specified by the display placard. At this time, I consider the matter concluded and intend on moving forward." So I said, well, there you go. Don's already moving forward. So I think ufology in general has moved forward.
I hate to interrupt, but we're going to have to move forward because
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O. Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
And we are back. I think on the last segment we were a little bit long and we might have missed some of that. Mark O'Connell, I almost said McConnell, Mark O'Connell was telling us what Don Schmidt had said about moving on from the Roswell event, I guess, the whole thing. So can we revisit the last part of that quote, Mark, and what exactly did he say at the end of that?
Sure. In Don's public apology for the Roswell slides, he said, "At this time, I consider the matter concluded and intend on moving forward," unquote. So as far as, is it time for ufology to move on? Yes, the point I made in the debate was, yes, it already has moved on, and Don agrees. And then Don did agree with me, actually, in the debate. So there was no argument there. Yes, time to move on.
So what
We're
you're
moving
saying,
on, you should too.
What you're saying is my book, Roswell in the 21st Century, is passé already?
No, I'm saying your book should be read by everyone who's interested in this topic. I really, really do, because I was so impressed with that book, Kevin. Just the fact that you did one of the things that I really admired Dr. Hynek for. You followed the facts and said, this is the only thing we can conclude from the facts. There's nothing else we can conclude. This is the way it is. And I think that kind of hard, clear thinking is often missing from ufology. So I really appreciated it.
And the money will be in the mail here shortly for that commercial announcement. No, I thank you, Mark.
If I can't offer you a job, I can sell some books for you.
Hey, there you go. I'm on board with that. Okay, so we're debating Roswell. You've now suggested that we should move on from Roswell. We've demolished the slides. What other aspects of the Roswell case did you guys talk about?
Well, one of the questions had to do with why were there seemingly so many UFO crashes, and they listed Aurora, Cape Girardeau, Roswell, Aztec, Kecksburg, and others. I didn't really have a whole lot to say on that, except that I basically said that compared to the millions of sightings on record, it seems to me there are actually very few reports of UFO crashes, and I kind of wonder why. Of that group, I'm most familiar with Aurora and Aztec, because both of those were kind of played a role in my book. But we really didn't have a whole lot to say about that. I just basically said it seems to me that some of the saucer crash stories can be explained as psyops put on by the military. I actually have some evidence of that, but it belongs to a person who won't allow me to share it, so I can't really. Unfortunately, I can't go into the story, but I have a sneaking suspicion that some of these UFO crash stories have a lot to do with misinformation spread by our government, and I think probably a lot of people would agree with that.
Well, the one thing that I've always said is, you take a look at some of the lists of UFO crashes. There's like 300 plus. These things are raining out of the sky practically, and you have to wonder is if there's that many UFO crashes, how come we don't have much better information? Because at one point, one of them is going to have to crash in a place where the government couldn't cover it up, couldn't hide it, and there would be great pictures of it, and that just never happens. I mean, if you go back to the Aurora, Texas 1897 crash that you alluded to just a moment before, you notice that there's one story in the newspaper about it in 1897, and there's never any follow-up. And you're thinking, well, what happened to this thing? You've got all these, and it's buried. The guy's buried in the cemetery there in Aurora, Texas, and then you have to look at a history of Aurora that was published about 10 years later. There's no mention of this event at all. And you think, well, the government and the CIA wasn't there to suppress the information, so what happened to it? Because that would have been a big event if it had truly happened.
Yeah.
So you know,
yeah.
I get on the UFO crashes, and I will always say that you look at the quality of your car. You know, if you grew up in the 50s and 60s, there were all kinds of problems with your cars, and they were stalling and braking. And in today's environment, they work a lot better than they used to. And I would think that a race that has been able to defeat the problems of interstellar flight would have solved some of the problems that they would run into in planetary exploration. Of course, that doesn't get away from the guy that pushes the wrong button, but that's a whole other argument.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I think that's a worthy point. I mean, I do have a hard time believing, okay, if these alleged aliens have traveled across the universe or traveled from another dimension or another time or wherever it may be that they've come from, how could they get all the way to Earth and then not nail the landing? It makes absolutely no sense. You're right. I mean, there's always the guy pushing the wrong button, but that's very hard to believe. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, so you talked about other UFO crashes. Did you talk anything specifically about Roswell? I mean, in the debate.
Yeah. There was a question about. In fact, the next question up was, what were Major Jesse Marcel's motives in going public about the Roswell event later in his life? And this is the kind of question I just took for granted. Don knows Roswell trivia inside and out, of course, and I don't. So I knew I would be at somewhat of a disadvantage in some respects in this debate. So, but my answer to this question was basically, why did Jesse Marcel go public after whatever 30, 40 years? And to me, it seems pretty clear. You look at human nature. It was just embarrassment. He was made to look pretty stupid back in 1947 by his superiors when they pulled the rug out of the flying saucer story and said it was a military balloon. And it seems clear to me that after living in shame over that moment in life, out of the blue, some UFO researchers approach him and say, hey, tell us what really happened. Well, what do you think Marcel's going to do? I mean, if you understand anything about human nature, you'll understand his decision to tell his story to an eager researcher who is clearly receptive to his story. So, but, I don't know for a fact. This is just my opinion. I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm just saying after 20 years of feeling shame and anger, and somebody shows up at your doorstep and says, hey, tell us what really happened. Well, of course you're going to tell your side of the story. There's no mystery there.
I'm not sure that's really valid, having done an awful lot of research into this myself. I know that Marcel was chatting with his pals who were ham radio operators and had mentioned that he'd picked up pieces of a flying saucer, and that was how Stan Friedman got a hold of the story. One of the a producer or a news director at the station there in, I guess, New Orleans had told him that he knew a guy who'd picked up pieces of the flying saucer and gave him the information. And Friedman took down the information and called him a couple of days later, but it was more than a year before they actually approached him to get additional information, because they couldn't find out much about it until Bill Morris blundered onto the photograph of Marcel with the weather balloon in Ramey's office. So, but so I'm not sure that's quite right. I think that I'm not sure that he stewed about it. I'm not sure that he was angry about it. And if he really found a flying saucer, then he was keeping his mouth shut like he was supposed to until he thought the statute of limitations had expired. Sappho Henderson, her husband, Pappy Henderson, said that he'd flown bits of the material out of Roswell in 1947, and he said that he saw the story in a newspaper. It was a tabloid newspaper, like you buy at the checkout stand in the grocery market, or you used to be able to buy it there. And he said to her, well, since they're putting it in the newspaper, I guess I can tell you about this now, and told her his role in it. But the gag on him was actually it didn't mean he had permission to tell, because it was a classified material. And even if it's in open sources, what he's done now is confirm the validity of it, which is a good thing for reporters, but not necessarily a good thing for keeping secrets. So I'm not sure that's completely a valid, but you might be right too.
Well, fair enough. I know very little about the man, so I concede that we may both be a little right. I may be a little wrong.
But by the same token, we know that Jesse Marcel had a tendency to embellish tales. And if you go back and you're looking at the shooting script for the program UFOs Are Real, and Marcel's on, no, I'm sorry, it's in the book For the Sake of My Country by Linda Corley, who interviewed Marcel at length, and she's talking about that. Marcel is starting to tell the tale about how he had performed an emergency appendectomy on a soldier, getting instructions over the radio. And his wife says, "Oh, not that story again." So it suggests that he liked to tell stories too. So I'm just really kind of ambivalent about that, especially with what we know today. So that's my take on it, and I keep interrupting you when we should be talking to you about what you learned in the debate or what you said in the debate. So we've dealt with Marcel. We're getting close to, I'm warning you, we're getting close to a break here. But what other things came up in the debate?
Well, they for the final big question, they asked, what's the most important issue for ufologists today? And I took the opportunity to say that I just think we need to move beyond the nuts and bolts approach to the UFO phenomenon, which is exemplified by the Roswell mystery. And I quoted Hynek again from a 1975 letter he had written to Carl Sagan, where he said, "I do not and have never supported the idea that UFOs were nuts and bolts hardware from some very distant place." And so I just used that quote to say, yeah, I think ufology would be better off if we looked at the totality of the phenomena. Why do UFOs behave like solid objects one second and then take on non-physical aspects the next? What game are they playing? I think those are the things that will move ufology forward. And I'm sad to say that when I gave that answer, Don's response was, "Well, Mark, you have to understand, Dr. Hynek had a brain tumor at that point, so you really can't go by anything he said." And I got to tell you, Kevin, I was deeply offended by that. And I just said, "Oh, I get it. So when Dr. Hynek disagreed with you, it was because he had a brain tumor and he had impaired mental facilities?" I was really, really, really offended by that. I don't know how people in the audience felt. Probably don't know enough about it to have an opinion. But I was deeply offended. What a cheap shot.
Actually, what I would have said in response to that question is, Carl Sagan had said to the Condon Committee back in the 1960s that we could expect one alien visitation every 10,000 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I would have said, when do we start counting the 10,000 years? And don't you think that if a civilization arrived here at Earth, an alien civilization arrived and saw that we were moving into an industrial age, or we were in the industrial age, or we're moving in the atomic age, wouldn't that suggest to them that here's something that we maybe should study? That once we've set up the signal that we're here, that maybe they would be coming back more frequently, which would explain why we see more of them today than we did 200 years ago. As just a thought.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because Carl Sagan is actually the bad guy in my book. I'm happy to say. Because, one of the amazing things I learned in researching the book was that Sagan and Hynek had a very, very long-lasting relationship as colleagues, astronomers, and they butted heads quite a bit over the UFO topic, and it made for some really, really interesting stories, and it's all in my book.
Well, I will say one thing before we take our next break here, and that is simply that Carl Sagan got the highest per word rate that I know of that any author ever got. He got, I think it was $2 million a word, and what they bought was his name, Carl Sagan, and he wrote the book Contact out of that, which I can't really get through, but I figured they bought it based on his name and nothing else. We're going to have to take a quick break, and we will be back with Mark O'Connell talking about this. And as I say, additional information you can usually find at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And we will be back shortly.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
And we are back with Mark O'Connell, who has website, www.highstrangenessufo.com. And he's doing a book called The Close Encounters Man, which is due to the publisher, I guess, in May of 2017, about J. Allen Hynek and his UFO research. When we left, we were talking to Mark O'Connell about the debate he had with Don Schmitt and some of the points that came up. And I guess the next question that I would have is, did you stick strictly to the topic of Roswell, or did you motor into other areas of the UFO phenomenon?
There were a couple little side routes. There was one question about disclosure, and my answer was, I guess, kind of short. I think disclosure is a fairy tale. I think if disclosure was going to happen, I believe it would have happened by now, and I believe it would have happened because the aliens decided to make it happen. I think if you're into the disclosure school of thought, I think I don't see how you could possibly think that our government would have the upper hand in that relationship. I think that the decision of when the reveal is going to happen would be totally in the hands of the aliens.
And that's what I've said for years, that the disclosure is not up to us. It's the aliens are going to decide we're here, and we're going to announce it, and we're going to be sure at that point. So I think disclosure.
How could it be any other way?
Other than if the government decided to come out and says, yeah, we found a flying saucer and this is what we've learned from it. But there's no motivation to do that. Why? I can't see any point in that. So you discussed a little bit about disclosure, other aspects.
That was really it, to be perfectly honest, except for, the final question about, what's the best way for ufology to move forward, which we discussed a little already. I just basically felt we need to get away from thinking that we need to prove everything, because I think it's fair to say that the UFO phenomenon has always remained impervious to proof, almost to the degree that it's purposefully doing so. I think ufology needs to be asking questions like, why does the true nature and purpose of the UFO phenomenon always seem to remain just out of reach? What do UFOs mean? What do they mean to us? I think those are the kinds of questions that draw me to ufology, and I wish there was more focus on that kind of question. I think the obsession with proof, and I completely understand it. Everybody wants to prove this, but it never really gets us anywhere. Meanwhile, we've got things. When the Roswell slides are sucking up so much oxygen in the room, meanwhile, we've got really fascinating things that, in my opinion, are still mysteries, like Betty Hill's star map, or the police squad car in a museum in northern Minnesota driven by Deputy Val Johnson, when a bright light shot inside the car, and you've got this car in this museum. It's got a smashed windshield. It's got smashed lights. It's got bent radio antenna because a strange UFO collided with it on a lonely road in Minnesota. Those stories just sort of sit there. They just sort of languish. Nobody even looks at them. And I think those are much meatier stories, in my opinion. So that was kind of where the debate ended up, was sort of what do we look at next? How do we move ahead? And then I also suggested to the audience that they should do what I did and sign up with MUFON as a field investigator. I did that in 2011, and Kevin, it's taught me so much about what kind of person reports a UFO event. How does that event affect the person, psychologically and emotionally? What causes them to decide to fill in the report? Sometimes they're reporting a UFO sighting, 10 years, 20 years after the fact. Those kinds of things are really fascinating to me. And I've learned so much about all of that just from being in MUFON.
I did a lecture down in Edinburgh, Texas, a couple of years ago, and I was sitting at the table, and a guy came up to me to tell me his UFO story, which had frightened the hell out of him. And I asked him why. It didn't interact with him in much of any way. It was just there in the sky, and he was just very upset by this whole thing. And we kind of discussed it for 30 minutes, and then he went away, and he came back a couple hours later, and he said, well, thank you. And I said, well, what? And our discussion about what was your trouble? Why were you frightened of it? Calmed him down. He realized that there was really nothing to worry about. I said, nothing happened to you afterward. Nothing has happened in all the years after this sighting. There's really nothing to be frightened of. So we kind of worked it out that way. The thing that you kind of keyed in to me is we have very good evidence that the Air Force was less than candid in their discussions of their UFO investigations, and that the Condon Committee was pretty much a setup to end their investigation of UFOs.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, that was a short answer. Never answer a question. Ask a question being answered in one word.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think the whole thing. There's, and it's funny. Hynek had a quote. Somebody asked him, "Well, do you believe the government was covering anything up as far as UFOs are concerned?" And Hynek said, "Well, you can cover up knowing something, but you can also cover up not knowing something." Which, I love that quote, because either way, whether the government is covering up something they know or covering up something they don't know, you can still reach the same conclusion, that the government knows that there's something going on. They just have no idea how to handle it, which has always been the case going back to 1947.
And that was the thing that kind of always struck me, is that they were not hiding the evidence of the UFOs. They were hiding the fact that they didn't know what was going on. And if you look at the Roswell case, it's 1947, and suddenly they're presented with a technology that is completely beyond them, and they just realize we've come out of this devastating war, and people are a little bit leery about it. We say, well, there's alien invaders coming. It's going to create major trouble, especially when they say, well, we don't know anything. We don't know whether the invasion fleet is right up by the moon and about to arrive, or if this was sort of a reconnaissance and they made a mistake and ended up crashing. We don't know anything that we can tell them. So you're right. It's either a cover-up of ignorance, or they have something that they think is going to be so devastating that they don't want to admit it to people, and that would be the whole thing. You look at the whole history of the UFO phenomenon, you can see that the government set up investigations, oftentimes classified investigations of UFOs. So there's something going on, which is not necessarily to say it's alien in nature, but it's something that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I had alluded to earlier this piece of evidence that I can't share, and it's unfortunate that I can't, because it's basically a personal letter written from someone in the Air Force in the early 1950s to a friend, describing a sort of an officially sponsored UFO encounter between some servicemen and a supposed captured UFO. Turns out the story is just completely taken from Frank Scully's book, his UFO book from 1950. So
Behind the Flying Saucers.
Strange mystery. Yes, Behind the Flying Saucers. So it creates this huge question of, well, why on earth was this person in the Air Force writing a letter to a friend, obviously violating whatever security clearance he had, repeating this story? The whole thing is so bizarre. That's why I said it all makes me think this has all got to be a big psyops by the government. It's like, show people just a little bit of your proof that the UFOs exist, and then make them feel stupid for believing it, and then they'll think twice in the future about saying, yes, I saw some UFO stuff. It's all just sort of this mind game to sort of expose people to the truth and then pull it back so that they'll never talk about it, because they know what'll happen to them. It's really an interesting story.
Which is exactly what they did at Roswell. Showed a little bit of it and then pulled it back within 3 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were aware of that. Well, we've just about reached the end of our rope here, about run out of our time. I would like to say to Mark McConnell, thank you for sharing. Mark O'Connell, I'm sorry. It's too many Connells running around here.
You've been so good, Kevin. You've been so good. This is the first time you got it wrong.
I've blown it. Mark O'Connell, for his assistance in understanding some of the Roswell case and what was going on. His website is www.highstrangenessufo.com. So you can take a look there and see what his opinions are. He's writing the book, The Close Encounters Man, about J. Allen Hynek, which is, I guess, due for publication in May, or is it due to the publisher in May?
No, it's already at the publisher. It's coming out to bookstores in May 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be out.
It's also available.
Yes.
Can I say it's available for pre-order on Amazon right now?
You can say that, but we'll probably edit it out at some point. That was a joke, guys.
Well, I know. I'm glad I said it.
Okay. So the book will be out in May of 2017. And Mark has had a wonderful career, and he won't offer me a job in writing anything in Hollywood, so I probably will never speak to him again. But if you want additional information, you can find it at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And if you want more information about the Roswell case, at least from my perspective, which I guess we could now call a different perspective, it would be Roswell in the 21st century. And so now that I've managed to plug my books and everything, Mark, anything you'd like to say in closing here? Yeah, I just threw it to you.
Just thank you for having me on the show, Kevin. I really appreciate it. It's been an interesting situation to end up in, being this sort of voice of an alternative theory of Roswell, but it sure makes life interesting.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you once again, Mark O'Connell. We will be back next week with another exciting episode of A Different Perspective. And as I say, you can listen to previous shows. The links are always up at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com for those of you if you've missed something in the past. And we will be back next week with, I'm thinking, John Greenwald from the Black Vault. So stay tuned for the next program and tune in next week for John Greenwald. Thank you for listening to this.